Hello, my name is Okasa, and I'm a constant stream of consciousness. And today we'll be discussing reincarnation. So, I have like a lot of concepts and ideas and thoughts that I would love to share. However, finding a starting point has been very difficult. All my ideas are connected, so interrupting my mind to share with others does tend to unravel everything. But today I will be attempting to share a slice so that we can build and build and build upon this. So, what is reincarnation? Reincarnation is the idea that when you die, you get reborn and you live a new life. And then you die again, and then you get reborn and you live a new life. So it's just that like constant cycle of birth and death and rebirth and death and rebirth and death, right? I'm in hoodoo/voodoo adjacent spaces because I'm Black, and the common consensus is that reincarnation happens within your family line or ancestrally. But that now brings up the question of how do you define family? Do adopted people are adopted people included, or is it only people of blood relation? And then how blood related do you have to be with your former self to get reincarnated back into the family line? Because technically, if you look long enough, we're all related. And this is where I want to like throw the concept of as above, so below. I know, and I guess us who are also watching on this physical plane are aware of how complicated it is down here. There are outliers to rules, there are exceptions to the rule, and trying to tie up everything in a pretty bow is sometimes impossible. So I'm just assuming that up there, it's probably also a case by case situation of how people get reincarnated. And in fact, I think the best example of reincarnation and how complex it could potentially be is Adventure Time. But then, even that doesn't really tackle a complexity or like an idea or a concept that I've been working on, but it is not yet the time to share. I think there's two types of reincarnation, is my point. But like, see how, like I said, all my ideas are connected? That's a tangent for another day. I personally believe there's fundamentally two types of reincarnations. But that, yeah. Anyways, I do think that reincarnation is probably more complex, or like the spirit world is just as complex or potentially more complex than even the physical world. And we won't know until we finally get back up there. Back, back up there. Yeah. Like, I do think we came from there, and then there's a return to, and then you come back and it's a return to. Anyways, so who are ancestors? Ancestors are pretty much anyone who is a dead relative. And because, for the most part, or like hopefully for the most part, most people die of old age, your ancestors tend to be elders. So this is where I'm finally getting to my point where it's just like if you had a grandmother that died, and she goes back up there and she becomes an ancestor, and the ancestors get reincarnated, technically the grandma's the baby. And this sort of plays with a musing or a concept that I'm constantly meditating on, which is the constant back and forth or the constant performance of exaltation and humiliation and going back on this axis. Because to be an ancestor is to have your descendants, you know, prey upon you, not prey upon you, like pray toward to you and ask for guidance and help. You are a figure of power. You help people. People call to you for help and guidance. And then to return as a baby, technically you become a dependent. You need your parents. You need your former descendants to now take care of you. You know, like you can't even move for yourself, you can't feed yourself, you can't even like talk for yourself. You need someone to be there for you. Whereas before, just like however long it takes for the spirit travel to become a baby again. Cause like I do think about like maybe a bit taboo. I think about the concept of abortion, and I don't think there's a spirit in that body from day one. I don't think that. But again, like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know the full details, but I'm just like, I do think babies can be like vacant for a while and then a spirit just comes in at some point. Because there are some people, I forgot what they called it, but there are some people who are like, yeah, I remember entering my body. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I don't remember entering my body. If I do remember becoming aware really young. I think I got aware, or I became aware that I was like a person at like 2 years old. And like I had my parents and my grandparent and my sibling. Yeah. But yeah, I think everything's case by case. But I do think about like, yeah, when the ancestor, they come from like an exalted point of being the person of the most power, I guess. But like they're an exalted point and then they get humbled or they get humiliation. I don't think is the right word technically, but humility, humble, and humiliation are all from the same root word. So they humble themselves to become a baby so that they can exalt themselves back up, right? And I also think that ancestral work also ties into Saturn, partially because like Saturn is very karmic, and karma makes the world go round, and a lot of karmic figures have like the spinning thing. And I said like the constant cycle of death and rebirth, the constant cycle of death and rebirth, and then even like the concept of the axis, going back and forth of an axis to some extent. And I've been talking about this sort of kind of like how signs of the same modality tend to be they tend to clash against each other, or like they tend to bicker, or they're not, they lack compatibility. But it's not a lack of compatibility, it's just more so they are the exact same concepts but on like two different perspectives, so like they're seeing it at different angles. But because like it's a wheel, like astrologically it's a wheel, the axis points it has, when we think of axis, I think of the planets, and the planets are circular, it's like they're rotating. So there are moments of when you were exalted at some point. Now, because of the rotation, you're now in a humble. And this is what I mean, like it's a constant practice, and like all karmic things, or like a lot of karmic symbols are just rotating items. I don't know if that I'm explaining it well, but this is what I think about when I think of Saturn. It's karmic, has to do with the axis, and I wouldn't say modalities, because then it's like up, down, left, right. All of them are technically the same thing. I think of mathematical concepts of like 7 and -7. Technically, they're two separate numbers, but they're not two separate numbers. They are the same numbers experiencing different expressions. Like one's a positive number, one's a negative number, but they are the same number. And then I think of the concept of an x-axis compared to a y-axis, and it's like those are the same number. And that's why I'm just like, cardinal signs will clash against each other, not because they don't like each other, but because they are the exact same thing, but they're looking at things at a different experience or like a different angle. So they sometimes clash, but they're technically doing the same thing. They're technically experiencing the same thing. They're technically the same thing, but they're not, but they are. And then fixed signs are the worst because they're stubborn. They're fixed. Like I think I mean, I brought it up in my TikTok where I was just like signs of the same modality, they bicker, or they clash because they're like the same thing, the same way how parents don't, like they clash with the kid that is literally a direct copy of them. They have to clash with themselves. But I sort of lost my point. Oops. Let me think if I can remember. If I can't, it's okay. I'll always come back and talk about it. Oh, I was gonna say I said especially fixed signs, but I think mutual signs get away with it, but I've seen mutual signs bicker. And I'm just like, you're supposed to be really chill and relaxed, but you can't even help yourself. Like I genuinely think like mutual signs tend to be real chill with everybody until it's another mutual sign, and all of a sudden like they just agitate each other in a way that other signs can't. Fixed signs will bicker with everyone, but like, oh, when they bicker with themselves, I cannot stand it. So it's like mutual signs, I would say cardinal signs, then fixed signs. Best to worst when it comes to bickering, I think I can't listen to fixed signs argue. I will walk away. And I say this as someone who I'm a Cancer, right? So like actually my mom's a Libra, but like that's not even the problem. The problem is that all our moon signs are fixed. My mom is a Taurus. My brother is a Scorpio. I'm a Leo. My dad's an Aquarius. And then there's outliers elsewhere. But like, we have every fixed sign in our moon signs. And I'm the Cancer. So I'm hyper aware. I'm hyper aware that this shit's barely fucking working. But karma makes the world go round. So whatever, it's supposed to be like that. Everyone's supposed to be opposing each other and squared, whatever. But I'm telling you, like anytime I'm just like, this is teetering into like how you feel comfortable in your home, I am actually going to remove myself from this conversation, because I know that we're not going to actually come to an agreement. Not really. Not through arguing. We're going to come through an agreement when we realize, oh wait, you said the same thing I did. Oops. So why are we arguing? Why are we arguing? Sorry, I went on the tangent, whatever. But yeah, ancestral work reminds me of Saturn, and Saturn reminds me of karma and that whole axis. But then also, Saturn, I think, is personally a planet of teaching and learning lessons, right? The concept of the Saturn return, to me, I see Saturn return as the final exam. That's how I see Saturn. But then also, I think ancestors will send you lessons to see if you are better, if you're equipped or you're ready to receive the blessing that you have been requesting. So they'll send you a test to see, okay, I can send you what you've asked because you've passed the test. But then on the flip side, and this is where I'm like, hey, like opposing signs are doing the same thing, but like at different expressions, but they're doing the same thing. A baby comes into a person's life and babies are capable of teaching parents lessons. Babies are capable of maturing a person and making them grow to be a better person. Like I also think of like sort of kind of the devil tarot card because I think it's either associated with Capricorn or Saturn. I forgot which one, but just like that line of these are associates with each other. I think of how some people call their children little devils as a term of endearment, I think. I think I've seen or heard stuff. I come from a religious household, so like there's no way my mom would ever like call us that, but I'm pretty sure I've seen people call their kids little devils. And I think about how the concept of a devil in some cultures, it's like not innately evil, though often they are malicious, but like devils are there to test you, like tempt you, but like to test your boundary or test if you're actually going to listen. And I do think of like the first example in the Bible, Adam and Eve, though I think most people are like, those are different entities, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I don't know anything. I feel like someone's going to try to talk to me. But like it's the concept of the devil came in and he tested, they were taught a lesson. Don't eat of that fruit. So then the devil came and tested them and they folded. They folded like no pressure at all. They literally failed the test. And because they failed the test, now we're in this situation. It's been karmic. And also I don't think of karma specifically as like every like well, I do think of like every action has an equal reaction, but I think of how like karma is just like every action that you've ever done will have a ripple effect forever and forever. And you might think, oh, like this karmic cycle has ended, but the ripples will continue and continue and continue. And it's not really a matter of like punishment or award or reward, though those are factors. I just think that everything that's ever been is connected and they have ripple effects into your future. I would even argue it has ripple effects into our past, but you're not aware of it until like you're in the situation and now you're looking at your past like, oh, because I'm a creative and technically I've been put in situations where I've noticed this concept that I was playing with, I low key think it was a download from my future self, but I'm not aware of it just yet. I talked about Adventure Time, right? Time is an illusion. I'm gonna have to like make a video about that. But yeah, that's a tangent for another day. But um oh my god, I had a meme. I'll probably post it on my Instagram. You should follow me on both my Instagrams, but I'm gonna post it on my Finsta, the one that has zero, I don't follow people back on. I made a meme where I was like, when the ancestors are trying to teach me a lesson, but I don't understand it, so they tell me in person, and it's a positive pregnancy test. That's what I was joking about. And I don't know if people really got it or I don't really have an audience over there, but I generally think it's like a really funny joke. And I might recycle it or reuse it on a TikTok where I'm just like, yeah, I do think like sometimes your ancestors will show up in person because they're like, actually, I have to teach you in person as a baby. Oh, and then I guess another example of like axes being the exact same thing, but they're technically different, but they are the same thing is well, we just finished Sagittarius season, but the concept of Gemini and Sagittarius being Gemini being a student, Sagittarius being a teacher, but in some depictions, Gemini is treated like the teacher and Saturn is treated like a student. And it's like the concept of the student has become the master, or even the concept of to be a good teacher, you had to be a student, or to know that you learned a concept as a student, you need to be able to teach. And they're technically polar opposite identities. One is teaching, the other one is the student. One is the teacher, one is the student. But often they exchange. There's like an exchange. This is what I mean by like humiliation, exaltation, and it's just a constant performance and it's a constant exchange. And actually right now on my TikTok, I'm in my flop era and it's like been hurting me. Like low key, I'm just like, no, I was like on the up and up. And right now it's like I'm in my flop era, but I also I though I know it. I know that I need to be in my flop era because that's just how the world goes round. I need to be at this era that I'm in right now so I can learn from this angle, see it from this perspective, and it's going to make me better. Like I'll be better for it. It still hurts. Humiliation is painful. Exaltation is like the up and a up. It's like a high. It literally is a high. The humiliation is like such a downer. It can hurt real bad, but like I'm gonna push through it, and I know that I'll be back on the up and up again, and I know that there are gonna be futures again where I'm on the down and down. And I think that also ties to one of the TikToks that I said where I was talking about K-pop flop names. And I'm just like, I do think flop names are important. I think you should have a flop name. I need a flop name. And this is even like the worst flop, but like it's not a worse flop, but it feels like a flop. Like it hurts. But it's okay. Anyways, now the question that I wanted to bring up is the concept of what is the turnover rate when it comes to reincarnation? Again, I've said that it probably is a case by case situation. I wouldn't be surprised if there are people who die and then they get instantaneously reincarnated, right? What I do think is that a lot of people die and then they find out there's a queue line if there's like a family, if there's a family line. And no one wants to have babies in my family right now. So like there's probably a long queue line. Can't die now. I can't come back anytime soon. But this is actually I'm gonna get really close and personal because this is what I genuinely think is like the sweetest concept of like if reincarnation is real, if reincarnation is family or through family lineage, the concept of what if that baby is actually the grandparent's grandparent, meaning when the grandparent was a baby, they had a grandparent, right? And they loved each other and it was sweet and it was innocent. And then as they get older, the grandparent dies, they get exalted, they become an ancestor. And by the time they finally get reincarnated, they find that the baby that they had once loved when they were a grandparent is now the grandparent and they're the baby. Do you get the concept of what I'm saying? Like the exchange, exaltation, humiliation, the exchange of that. And I mean, in this situation, technically the most exalted you can get to is ancestor, but grandparent is an exalted. Like you've aged, you've gotten up there in age. And this is where I'm just like, though actually personally, I don't think if reincarnation is real, I don't think I believe this version of it per se. This is the one that I favor the most, which is the concept of like reincarnation is technically the way family members get reunited after being separated through death. That you get to oh, not interrupting me. Okay, you get reunited with a soul that you had loved and you technically lost, but like you get to like I don't know how. Like it's really sweet because I sometimes like see these grandparents when they get their grandbabies and they literally greet their babies like the same type of excitement that you see children have when they get to like hang out with their grandparents. It is so sweet. And like I mean the grandbaby is also excited potentially because I do think like sometimes they're remnants of like your past life. I do think babies, I don't know when the amnesia happens. Exactly. This is where I'm like there are details that I know that I don't know. I don't know if you come in and you don't know everything. I don't know if you come in, you remember some things and then you forget. I do think there are some babies who like they come in and then they just enter amnesia for whatever reason, but they knew everything that they needed to know, right? Or maybe they do that so that it's not so abrupt and scary when they are back here. Cause like I would have to say like death, not traumatic. Well, not some deaths are traumatic, but like technically it's a major shift and that can be disorienting, and I wouldn't be surprised if like birth is also just as disorienting. So like maybe they're like we're going to leave you with your former memories in the beginning so it won't be as disorienting, but you will forget eventually. And then there's some people who don't forget. Again, I think it's a case by case situation, but yeah, I guess the last thing that I wrote here was just like, yeah, death is a return to what? Like, I think, oh, well, actually, there was, I guess, more. I think that I talked about how technically the whole exaltation humiliation is like low key polarizations or axes, and they're the same thing, but they express themselves differently. So they're different things, but they're exactly the same thing. I think of like how humans age as being also the same concept where like when you come into the world, you are dependent, right? And then you grow up and did I say bell curve? I think of it like a bell curve where it's like you come into this world, you're dependent, then you age into being independent and you can take care of yourself. And in fact, you can take care of others, right? And as you get older, the older you get, the more like disability comes with age. You become a dependent again. And those are technically mirroring identities where it's just like a baby is a dependent. They can't wipe themselves. They live in diapers. They need to be fed. There are old people like that too. They live in diapers. They need to be fed. There need to be people who need to take care of them. They are dependent, right? And I would even say, I think old people are low key really cute. Now, I don't have the heart to take care of them the way that I have a heart to take care of babies, but because I know that I almost have like an irrational love towards all babies, I do sort of kind of get the people who are like, my life's mission is to take care of older people. That those are the people that I genuinely love because they're like they are mirrors of each other. The concept of a baby and an old person are mirrors of each other. And actually, Mia Lay has a video where she was talking about Wally, and they were saying, oh, Wally was designed to look like a child, right? And that's why he's like cutesy. But then also, he's old, and people are afraid that he's going to break down. I'm telling you, the concept of being old and young are mirrors of each other. No one wants to be too young, no one wants to be too old, right? Technically, I have officially entered my independent, not really, I live with my parents still. Well, um, I'm entering my independent era, right? And it's going to be fun. I'm going to have like, what, a good 30 years in this. And then I know that there's going to become a point where I'm going to be dependent on someone again, like a baby. And then I'll get a return too. When I finally die, I'll get a return too. But then I would also say that birth is also a return too. But really, I just think about like how I don't really know what's going on the other side. I know what's going on here. And I know that at the very least, I'm here to learn a lesson, right? And I wouldn't be surprised that you go up there. Maybe it's not a queue line, but you have things that you have to check off up there too before you can return back down here so that you can learn again. And it's like sort of one of those things where it's just like, so we just go back up there just to come back. What's the point? It's just to learn, knowledge is ever expanding. Like when you think like, you could have been a caveman at one point, and what did you know back then? Right? And you know so much right now. I think it's just like what when I said karma makes the world go round, knowledge is ever expanding. You know what else is also ever expanding? The universe. I do think like this is where like those ideas of like you are the universe, we are the universe, we are the collective. Yeah, yeah. But anyways, the grandma's a baby. Thank you so much for watching. Let me think. What do I want to plug? Oh, I have some goals. I would love to get to 500 followers here and on Instagram, both my Instagrams. I would like to get to 7,000 followers on my TikTok. Follow my TikTok. I will either put my link tree down below or it will be in my bio. I do think I'll put my link tree down below. Then what else? Follow me on, check my link tree. Follow me on everything that you can find me on. I do have a Twitter. I didn't link it only because I low-key like my Twitter being quiet. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I would love comments. I would love likes. And oh wait, you totally saw. Oh my God, yeah. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'll definitely be back before New Year's, but Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.